Hey, Bobby here from Wedding Film School, and this morning we got an absolute monster of an announcement from Sony, the upcoming release of the Sony Alpha 1. And while your gut reaction to a $6,500 mirrorless camera might be that it has no place in the wedding world, I want to tell you why it might actually be a perfect fit for a certain group of wedding filmmakers. So I'm here to give you a quick overview of the highlights of this camera, share my thoughts on where it fits in the wedding filmmaking world, and compare it a bit against what I see as its likely main competitor right now, the Canon R5. The new Sony A1 is likely now setting the bar in mirrorless camera capabilities and is really considered now to be the flagship camera from Sony. A body that is really an all-in-one tool, whether you want low light performance, video-centered specs, high megapixels, or fast burst. All of the above is now packed into one camera. And I think it's important for me to say that there is always new gear and tech, and while there are some amazing features being offered here, you can create some great films with a variety of different cameras at many price points. You don't always need the latest and greatest, but as with any business, there are also times to upgrade and take advantage of some awesome new features. So let's look at what the Sony Alpha 1 has to offer. The first spec that jumps out to most, of course, is the 8K offering. Canon broke into this recently with the R5, but there were of course some issues upon launch. It's yet to be seen if there will be any overheating issues, but the record limit in 8K of 30 minutes is impressive, and this 8K video is without pixel binning. The 8K can be recorded in 10-bit 420 internally, while the 4K, which records up to 120 frames per second, can be recorded at 10-bit 422 internally. And with an external recorder, you can send out 16-bit raw video. And in Super 35 mode, you're going to get 5.8K oversampled video, meaning when you are recording 4K video, for example, it's capturing more resolution than your final output, giving you an even better image. On the body itself, it notably has dual card slots, which is something that most pros should be using if possible. And the A1 actually introduces a built-in Ethernet port as well as internal Wi-Fi connectivity, which I find quite interesting. The autofocus can perform live eye tracking autofocus, and the internal stabilization introduces a new active mode for theoretically even better handheld shots. And you can get up to 15 stops of dynamic range with this camera in S-Log3. And lastly, it has the S-Cinetone profile, which I know was something that some people were hoping for in the A7S III and were slightly disappointed, so I'm happy to see it here. And this all comes at a fairly large price point of $6,500. So let's talk about this new camera and how it affects the wedding world. It's pricey, there is no getting around that, and as such, this camera is not for most people. But I do see it having a place in the wedding world. If you want to explore 8K and you are heavily invested in a Sony lineup, then this is going to be your first shot in a mirrorless setup, if that's what you like. But with time, I'm sure 8K will become more available and priced lower, so most people won't be switching for that reason alone. Because of its price point, you'll need to be making significant profits as a company to justify the cost in most cases, but I really see this affecting one specific type of wedding filmmaker, and that is a boutique brand that is in the high-end market, invested in the Sony sphere of cameras, probably, and, most importantly, offers both photo and video. This camera is a beast, don't get me wrong, but if you aren't utilizing both the photo and video side, the price point is going to be too tough to swallow for now for the wedding world. But if you are shooting both photo and video, and you want the best of the best in both those categories, Sony has now done that for you in this flagship camera. Instead of having to buy something like an A9 for photo and an A7S III for video, you can now have all of the high-end features and more stacked into one body, making it perhaps a more cost-effective way to access all of those features. And if we remove the brand loyalty, I think the latest mirrorless camera from Canon, the R5, is what stacks up against the Sony A1 in a lot of ways, and what some may be considering as an alternative. So just a few quick comparisons between the two. Both offer 8K video, but the A1 offers it, at least on paper, with a 30-minute record limit, and the R5 with 20 minutes after an update. The R5, however, has had overheating issues, which have been noted, and that's important for us to mention. And equally important to say that while we all hope that the Sony avoids such issues, we don't know for sure until they start shipping. In the autofocus field, I have long thought Canon to be the industry leader, but I've also been able to depend on my Sony cameras in most scenarios. I have no doubt that the R5 will remain a top player when it comes to continuous autofocus, but I expect the autofocus, especially with the live eye tracking in high resolution modes from Sony, to at least be the same level and to be very usable. If shooting log is your thing, the R5 can get you 12 stops of dynamic range when recording, while the A1 can get you up to 15, which could be important for you. On the photo side, the R5 has 45 megapixels compared to 50 on the A1, and can shoot a burst photo speed of 20 frames per second, with the A1 doing 30 frames per second. Now, one thing that I like about the R5 is the flip out screen, which I wish Sony would take advantage of as well, so point for the R5 there. And of course, we have to acknowledge the price gap, with the R5 coming in around $2,600 less than the A1. So as you can see, the A1 has really taken what Canon came out with in the R5, hopefully perfected it, looking at you, overheating issues, and added onto it as well with a noticeable jump in price. Overall, again, the Sony Alpha 1 is not going to be the answer for everyone, and is probably not a need for nearly anyone in the wedding world, but especially if you are a hybrid shooter who does want the best options available to you on both the photo and the video side, the A1 actually makes sense not only on the spec sheet, but likely financially as well. But if that's not you, I think the A7S III, R5, or a variety of other cameras are going to allow you to, of course, still make compelling wedding films that clients, fellow colleagues, and random people watching can fall in love with. There are tons more specs out there about this new camera, so I'd encourage you to check out the announcement video if you're interested. We'll keep you posted of any updates or changes along the way that we get made aware of, and we're excited to see this camera in the hands of some of the top filmmakers when they start to ship. If you've got any questions, please leave them below in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.